Nice. Perfect. Come on. Oh. Alright. You ever got like these, I don't know, is that Bic lighters? Like sometimes you get some that'll just like whenever you disengage from like I guess the gas, it does like this final like and it like blows out your candle thing all the time, which is exclusively what I use it for. So it happens to me quite often where I'll finally light something and it'll like blow it out and it's already hard because the wax starts melting down. I guess it's not the worst problem in the world to have, or even, well, whatever. It's not really even a problem in the first place, but what's going on? All right. We're going to have to get started. Put these on. Cool. This weekend, like I said, last couple times, was super, not this weekend, but this last Tuesday, this drop was super important to me because I felt like it was turning the corner. And because of, there's actually something fun, interesting about it is that, first of all, let me open it. It's that whenever I made this song, 8 months ago, it's not that I didn't like it, but I didn't feel like I could do it justice. It was the opposite. I thought it was really good, and I couldn't figure out how to get it to sound right. I spent so much time, and everyone has this learning phase when they're like learning EQ and stuff, and then every now and then it'll start bothering you again, and you start doing dumb things. And like vocally for that first part, I just kept doing all these crazy like EQ things, which usually ends up just making it worse and whatever. And it's really just you, because you don't even know that it's there until you start messing with it. So it was the only song I did this with, but I left it alone. I didn't finish it until I was done with all my 26 songs and a couple songs for the album. Then I came back and started, I remixed it and everything like that. Basically, all I did was turn everything off that I was doing, all that foolish nonsense about. And a lot of times nowadays, my mixes sound better when I'm just like getting through it. Like, hurry up, just do the things you know. Because if I do the bare minimum, I do the things that need to happen. I let the vocals and the performance do what they're supposed to do. So that doesn't work for everybody. Some people need to pay a little extra attention. That's just what works best for me, because that's the least amount of stress, so I make the best decisions in that moment. I just kind of really trust myself. I don't have any filters or second guess myself if you do it that way, or if I do it that way. But anyway, if you don't know what song I'm talking about How It's Going. Released a new music video with it and everything this last Tuesday on the 3rd of August 2021. So let's get into how I made the song. This one came with a sample. From here on out, there's a lot of them I actually make with samples because there's a lot of cool stuff, and I wanted to really start focusing on my songwriting and performances, and that's even true even today. I'm still using a lot of samples and things in terms of the melodies and the backgrounds and the main instruments. And I don't feel any shame about it. It's just, it is what it is, I need to focus on, especially where I am. Like, I started way later than a lot of people in this music production stuff. So, I don't have a whole lot of practice come in and just, like, knock out a beat real quick. Like, I mean, I can do that, but it's easier when I have these creative influences rather than whatever's in my head. Because a lot of times what's in my head, I've been my whole life playing instruments and also just guitar and singing and stuff. It's always been bent around like the center focus of the song, the main melody and thing. And because of that, you can't really put that in the background because then it clashes with the vocals. So I got this cool ass sample though, and at the time I was like, I'm gonna put this on the album. And I was like, I really probably should. I was not even halfway through creating those 26 songs, and I was like, well, let me just wait. You know what I mean? And when I get there, I'll decide. But glad I didn't. Not that it's not good enough to be on the album. It's just the stuff on the album, I have a very high standard for the first album. So anyway, the sample. Turn this shit up for you guys. Oh, let me plug this in. But yeah, and this is one of those ones too where actually I did have to EQ it. Nowadays, the only EQ I really mess with are on my instruments for like my percussion and on the sample, because I there's like a certain quality of sound that I just like personally for all my songs, doesn't matter what it is. It always There's like a certain smoothness I need to have on my eardrums, or I don't fuck with it. I can't even write to it. So and you have to be careful with some like this because there's not really a lot going on, but there could have been, right? If you're not careful, like the EQ, only thing I did here is I had like what do you call it, a high shelf for the front on the upper end of the spectrum, but I pulled it down around 4800 hertz, and I only pulled it down for 1.5 dB or whatever, and the Q set to 1. But it was enough to take some of that spike off because it allowed it just, let's see if you can hear the difference. I don't know if you could hear that whenever I engaged and disengaged it, but what it basically allowed me to do was take off some of that harshness up there, and so I didn't focus on it. When I'm writing, I kind of write with the sample because I want to create into this. When I make the beat, I create this environment, and then I want to operate and write a story in that environment. And so I didn't want it harsh because then the song is going to be harsh. You can go back to my first 50 songs and hear how harsh those ones are. You know what I mean? So anyway, let's get to the snare, the next thing. How I like to do it. The very next thing I like to do is put in the snare. And the snare was just like I EQ'd the hell out of the snare because the snare was very sharp. And it still kind of is, but it fit the song, You know what I mean? Even you can tell, like if I disengage I'll do it right now. Like it gives it a little bit, it just takes a little bit of the bite off from my eardrums. And maybe that's just me because maybe I overdo it. Maybe I mix with the volume too loud or something like that. Whenever I'm making a beat and you're really into it, you can't help it. You accidentally keep it too high as you go and you think you're going to turn it down. I need to get better at that. But, because last thing I want is hearing loss with this profession. But, anyway, that's what I did. I kind of added it in. Something like that. It was just like that standard cookie cutter like thing, and a lot of my snares are for the most part. I try not to do the same thing in every song, of course, but a lot of my stuff ends up being similar because I like to use that snare as not a driver but a metronome. And maybe one day I'll experiment, but for right now, that's what I was going with. Of course, then I put in. Actually, this one I didn't put in the hi hats. I knew what I wanted the hi hats to do though. So I already knew they were on quarter notes, so I skipped that and went straight to the kick for the swagger of the song. And the reason I went straight for the kick is because at this point in time, it was still hard for me to not be heavily influenced by the drive, which I always say is the hi-hats. And I knew I wanted the hi-hats to be driving, but I wanted them to like more of an up fast paced kind of deal. But I really enjoy people who can balance, especially producers who can balance like a high paced drive in a song and have like a real slow, mellow, like kick and snare relationship. You know what I mean? I thought the sample was already good with it. It's like slow, but at this medium tempo, it's like 140 BPM. You know what I mean? So it's not super fast, super slow. It's like in that weird range. It's kind of like when you're transitioning from power walking to running. There's like this weird phase around 4 miles an hour where it's like, am I running or am I walking still? You know what I mean? It was still that same thing. So I was trying to do that and make sure if I had the hi-hats on though, I would have been way more aggressive and put way more kicks than I wanted to. I can do that obviously now. I just have to keep it in mind. But at that time I didn't. And that's kind of like part of knowing yourself when it comes to producing, Know what your weaknesses and skills are. And then if you know those and you're honest with yourself, you can make good quality songs. All you have to do is acknowledge it. And then how do I fix that? How do I prevent that from happening? So then I added in the drive. You see how they push? They really push it forward, even though everything else, the snare, the hats, I mean the snare and the kick, and then the sample itself are real like mellow in that weird in between limbo area, so they can be manipulated. Then throughout the song, when you put in and out in the arrangement, the hi-hats, it really gives it like this real strong, like noticeable, like slow down and speed up, ebb and flow without anything actually changing. I don't know. That's just kind of how I think of it. That's how what I wanted. That was the goal. And then the 808 was just, I came with it and just put in like usually I follow the bass note of the sample when I do samples, but this one I knew that I wanted like kind of more like what the modern producers do, with their like melodic 808s and stuff. So I kind of did a little bit of that, but not too much. You know what I mean? I made it bouncy enough for it to help drive. So I actually use the 808s to help drive, not just fill in the bottom and stuff and give presence. So while it also does that, it also contributed to the drive. So here we go. That's it, man. Aside from that, I went in out with everything else. You know what I mean? And as far as vocals go, yeah, that was like I said at the beginning of this. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, not the weirdest thing, but the only time I've ever done this where I didn't complete the song in the week span, and it was half of it was to hold myself accountable. I was like, you can't do it, trash. You failed, so now you got to move on. And I've done that before, but I've never just trashed the song. And I didn't trash this song. I just kept moving forward, knowing that I needed to come back and get it right, because I knew I didn't have the skill or the mindset or whatever it was at the time, which I think it was just a mindset. Less is more kind of deal. I didn't change anything, really. It was more about cutting the fat. You know enough. If you understand basic EQ and compression and like mixing and level gain staging stuff, that is really all you need to make a good sounding song. Like, aside from that, everything else you need to use, I always like to say, use that basic stuff on a very basic level. Don't touch anything until you're at the very end. Everything's mixed in, and then at that point, it's kind of like when I create the beat, I put everything in, and then I'll adjust the EQs for each instrument to make sure it all has space, it all sounds good, and one thing's not poking out over the other. And then same thing with the vocals. Like, you create the whole thing that you want over it, and then at the end, then you go and you add your little stuff. I use all these tools as creative, tools, rather than I just slapping on needless thing just because. Like, I don't, I'm not a big fan of that. But I also am a fan of templates. Like, there is a certain standard that I like my voice to sound like, so I have a template for that, So there's like a bass line that I know I'm working with, and from there I can tweak it. But I don't tweak anything until the entire thing's done and mixed. You know what I mean? Before it gets mastered, obviously, because you don't want to start missing stuff in the mixing phase when you already have your masters. But yeah, that is essentially it. That's how that goes. What's going on now that I'm done with this? I'm going to turn to you guys. If you guys have any questions, or you have anything you would like to say or anything like that, feel free to drop them in there, and I'm going to take a drink and exit this out, and I'll be more than happy to answer literally anything. So give me what you got. And by the way, these glasses right here, you know what I mean? I don't actually wear glasses. These are strictly computer glasses. Because, and they like keep out blue light and stuff. Because, man, like, I will destroy my sleep if I don't wear these. Because I look at a screen a lot for my job, as my day job, as well as for making music. Which means I'm looking at a screen for like 16 hours a day. Like, however much I put at work, like hours, I made an agreement with myself early on. So when a lot of people are like, I don't know how you do this with both things, I just tell them the same thing. Like, I mean, but the thing is you have to be good at holding yourself responsible, First of all, I don't make a lot of, promises, but when I do, I make sure I follow through on that. So, I told myself when I started this, however much time I spend at work, I need to spend that much time in the studio, which was kind of hard at first, but I did it, and then I moved up, and now It makes it a little bit easier. I'm less mentally and physically fatigued with where I am now in my positions. But anyway, because of that, like if you don't wear something like this saves you a lot, right? It stops you from whenever you mistaking yourself for having some kind of like, oh, I've been making beats too long or mixing too long, and your head starts to hurt. A lot of times that doesn't, especially if you're doing it properly and you're keeping your levels real low, you're keeping all your volume like at a low level while you're mixing the whole time. Sometimes it's just the blue light or staring really hard at a screen and stuff, and wearing these, like literally any blue light glasses are like $10. You can find them for $5. If you want to be fancy, you can get some nice ones for like 20 or 30. It doesn't matter. You just get something that blocks out the blue light. Make sure they send you a little tool that proves it. Like they sent me a little blue light thing I can shine on it, and it, like, you know, it'll actually stop and reflect the blue light. And yeah, it saves your life, like 0 migraines, you know what I mean? I perform significantly better, and my endurance in this stuff is a lot higher because my head's not hurting. So as long as I'm drinking a lot of water and wearing these glasses, I'm straight, you know what I mean? But anyway, looks like there's no one else here today. No questions, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Hope you guys enjoy this, and I'm going to see y'all in the future. You know what I mean?